The choice of project delivery system is one of the earliest and one of the most essential decisions that any project makes. This session highlights the Decision Support Tools research team DCC06, developed to help owners and contractors assess and select project delivery systems to maximize project performance. Here to present, please welcome Awad Hanna, Clark Baker, and Nicole Kaur.
Hello, everybody. I'm very proud to be here today. Myself and along with Nicole Kaur from Day Zimmerman, Clark Baker from ExxonMobil will provide this presentation. I would like to start this presentation with a commercial break. This is my 11th research project for CII, and I'm very proud of that. So if you put it all together from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I am from, between myself and my colleague, we come close second to UT Austin, I think. I started the first presentation back in 2000 with the cumulative impact of a change, and my last one was construction readiness, which is a nice tool that you can use from CII website. And I remember, over 200 emails once we finished this on how to operate this and how to use it. So the title that we choose here, After the Revolution. What revolution? The Project Delivery System Revolution. And we really believe as a team that we have, in the last 20 years, a revolution in advancing project delivery system. I go around the country, around the world, giving seminars and things like that, and I meet one of my committee members from CII. And I said, where are you going? I'm going to Dubai. What are you doing there? Are we doing construction management? Only construction management? Yes, only construction management. We didn't see that 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So it's really the innovation in the industry and the trend in the industry is more collaboration, more work together, put the intelligence of everybody together. Is this the first thing that we ever seen, early collaboration, design built, EPC, and all of that? The answer is no. The pyramids, built probably 4,000 years ago. That was the master builder concept. The genius person, we don't know man or woman, who designed, supervised construction of the Great Pyramids, who still stands to today. Just recently, if you follow the news, they found tombs of workers and their cookware next to the pyramid. That is exactly supply chain management that we talk about now. They have the workers, they have their camps, they have their cookware, they even have their barrier site. Not as big as the big guy, but it's still there. And of course, we have some unsuccessful projects like the Pisa Leaning Tower, fragmentation of responsibility, the soil engineer, the settlement, but still stand, still not subject to any failure. So the project delivery system is as old as human civilization. So right now, the world is more complicated. So the concept of the master builder is not easy to do anymore. So we have more people need to be involved, more knowledge need to be gained. So we start getting into the owner and the owner's need, the suppliers and the suppliers, what they have, what they can offer, the engineers and the design responsibility, and of course the contractor who built that project. So the concept of the master builder enlarged, expanded, become bigger and bigger. But instead of having the whole thing compacted, this is what we have now, more fragmentation. The industry is fragmented. This is not new to CII members or to people sitting in this room. We know that fragmentation, and we know the problem of fragmentation. We have now, instead of having one design, we have electrical design, mechanical design, sheet metal contractors, electrical contractors, and all of that. My next slide is an interesting one. A simple request by an operator in the field to change the temperature in one of the boilers in a DCC site. How many hands touch this piece of information before you make a decision? So it comes from the operator. It goes to the operation. After that, to the design engineer, or the owner, design engineer, to the mechanical engineer, to the vendor. So it have a big circle of responsibility. So how many hands it touches this piece of information? While the answer can be something very simple, I have this device that can do the job for you. So as you can see, fragmentation impact the industry, and now we need to get more collaboration, early collaboration, and so on. So to give you some background about the research project, this was a one-year deal. Originally, the CII approached us and said, okay, we have this old CII project, which is the principal investigator is a dear friend of mine. They did a marvelous job back in 2000. Can you update this? And we also have this computer tool. Can you update this? Then we start looking at that. The entire terminology changed. The terminology that was there at the time, we don't use it anymore. And I know some of you may still use partitioning and all of that, but that was the kind of terminology. The word IPD was not there, the word CMR, a little bit of that. And then we have the committee. We ask the committee, how many of you are using this computer tool? Maybe one. So talk about change of scope. Immediately, we have a brand new research project. And that's what we have here. So one of the reasons we do this now is to update the old document and use new terminology, new trends. We also need to understand the current trends in the project delivery system, and they are really moving fast, and certain project delivery system expanding at very fast speed. We also need to develop actionable items to the industry. What to do? What's my next? The previous group are talking about training of the workforce. Yes, we need training of project managers from confrontational to more collaboration. That's a change in the workforce that's coming. We also will provide useful tools. You will see, like, we got the pyramid theme. So we have the 3 different tools that we provide you as an owner, as a contractor also, to help you making a decision. And of course, we augment the understanding of the current project delivery system. So what to change? What's forcing us to do this? Of course, again, more collaboration early in the process, bringing the intelligence of the people together. BIM, developing the BIM model early require the input of the electrical contractor, the mechanical contractor, the sheet metal contractor, the designer. So the technology is forcing change. Okay, so if you talk about any of these new projects, they bring the people, the team, when the design is 0% complete. CII did a lot of work for system integration, cross-functional, and that's also some of the changes that happen in the industry. Risk allocation and proper risk allocation, that's another thing that happened to the industry. and people start understanding risk and how to reduce risk, how to allocate risk, and the risk and reward cycle now becoming big in the industry. And as you probably recognize, every time I go to a construction site, it's more complex projects. So, as a good research team, and this is, by the way, my second commercial break here, we start by having literature review, heavy literature review. So we look at all the research published over the years, and I have to give CII some credit. The one landmark study was done by Victor Sanvido from Penn State, where I'm from, or graduated from, and we build more and more on that. But what you see here is several research projects regarding design bid built, CMDB, design built, and IPD. But the one I highlighted in red, this is the effort at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We were the first, we believe, and I know people here from Colorado may not like that, but that we are the first university and the first research team to start providing quantitative, and the word quantitative is very important here, quantitative information about IPD. Not an opinion survey, not I think this is what happened. No, this is the metric that we use. So, as you can see from 2012, all the red, either El Asmar from Arizona State right now, he's one of my students, and we published several publications, and I have to also indicate the current effort by CII, which is I2PD, and also our effort in DCC06. As I said, the major advantage of this current effort, and you will see that, the quantitative aspect of our data and our analysis. The only piece of one bad news here, look at the last line, look at the last row, DCC research. We only have 2 projects that looked at project delivery system as it relates to DCC. I'm glad Stephen is here to hear that, so for more funding for the future. So it's only this effort and I2PD, which I'm very anxious to see the result, and we need to build more on that. So what we did, this was a very challenging project. I did, as I said, 11 CII projects in the last 20 years. This was the most time demanding for me personally. Why? Because we have only one in-person meeting, and the rest is online, Zoom. There's difference between meeting people. I need this data from you. Can you give us 5 projects? Then, Zoom, and we promise, and then next to Zoom meeting. So we did a lot of work, actually, to get the data. And when we talk about the data, I'm not talking about 2 pages of opinion survey. I'm talking about 35 pages of actual numerical number. What was the original budget? What was the actual budget? What was the change order cost? What was the change order hours? What was the original man hours? What was the original work hours? And so on. So it's 35 pages of data. And then we have a little discovery. DCC sector, they don't use IPD. Then can we publish a CII study without something about IPD? And of course, I get to the committee people, the wonderful people here, the chair and co-chair, and they really keep the ship moving forward. And he said, well, the only option is to go outside the sector and get some IPD data. So we were able to get 55 projects of data. We tried to be as close as possible to the DCC type of work. So we got into hospitals, industrial projects, as much as we can. So we have a total of 96 projects of data. The survey that we used, it's in the document. You will see it in the document. I encourage you to look at some metrics that we used in this work. So it was substantial effort in 1 year, but we are very happy that we have an outstanding research. Just to give you a quick idea about the type of data, split almost even between public versus private. It's also split almost even between different delivery systems, and we choose 4 delivery systems, IPD, CM, Design Bid Build, and EPC. We also, in terms of the cost, we have 15 projects below $5 million, 17 projects above $200 million. So we have well-distributed data in our samples. And of course, in terms of duration, from short duration to more than 4 and 5 years. So I will turn it to Clark. He will give you some basic idea about the definitions and some of the work that we did in terms of dividing the system into subsystems. With that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hanna. Good morning, everybody. One question for you. You know, it's exciting to work with the University of Wisconsin. It's a lot of University of Texas folks. Are there any Texas Aggies in the house? All right, I just want to make sure I wasn't the only one. I was feeling a little unloved, but good morning. So I think what I wanted to talk about briefly was to make sure we were all grounded in what do we mean by a project delivery system. And so, you know, just to kind of make sure we're on the same page, a project delivery system is what we're characterizing as a way to look at the relationships between the various parties that are involved in a project. Typically, you basically who does what when. And within that, there's a variety of relationships, usually engineering, procurement, construction management, and maybe a project management contractor element. And so we'll work through those. But to have a common language, we called it a project delivery system. And I was thinking about the Leaning Tower of Pisa that he had on there a little bit ago. You know, as you think through that and you're thinking about, well, am I going to do that as one project and have just an EPC do that? Or am I going to go maybe do the engineering first to really understand the engineering and the implications on when I go to realign that structure and then maybe go out and bid the construction separately and maybe the procurement, maybe because it's micropiles and reinforcements and things like that, maybe the procurement's better off being with the construction contractor, maybe it's better off being with the engineering contractor, and that's what this project delivery system discussion is trying to talk about. You know, the old-time influence curve, there's not a whole lot necessarily to say about that you don't already know, but it's really just a good reminder that the time to get the project delivery system right is up front. Let's get it up front where we have the ability to have the most influence with the least amount of cost. And you still have a full suite of options available at that time. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that one. But then we took our paper, our final report, and it's kind of broken into maybe 3 key layers or 3 components, kind of like this pyramid concept. We have the concept file, so what are the PDS project delivery systems and the relationships and making sure that we're all on a common ground footing on that. Then we'll have some conversation a little bit about the decision support tool. What's the tool that helps you decide what's the most appropriate project delivery system for you in your situation? And then the top of the pyramid is this performance analysis, the studies and the work that Dr. Hanna has already mentioned that help validate the decision support tool. I'm just going to talk about the concept file real quick. This concept file, when they looked at all these project delivery systems, and as we tied back to the pre-existing work, because this is a refresh of some stuff that was done 20 years ago or so, we said the 4 big systems, we called it, were design, bid, build, design, build, or EPC. We said construction management, and then this integrated project delivery system were the sort of the 4 big systems. And for each one of those, we talk about what are the key concepts, when do you apply it, how do you apply it, what do you need to avoid, and what's your definition of a success? Again, to make sure we're all on the same page when we talk about those. When you think about the matrix of responsibilities, we also looked at them as what we called subsystems, right or wrong on the terminology. But we said a typical project has these 5 elements, or 6 elements really. It has an owner, it has engineering, project management, procurement, construction management, and construction. And we decided to write those in a form of an equation, is what the grad students called it, where we said, okay, so if you had a scenario like depicted on the screen, and all of those were broken out as separate contracts or separate work elements, your equation would be a PMC, a project management contractor, plus the engineer, plus the procurement firm, plus construction management, plus construction. So that's kind of our vernacular for working through that. And then we have this simple and easy to understand chart to try and get through this. Hopefully that makes sense. We'll go to the next page. Now, basically we just said design, bid, build is in the light blue, and design build's in the light blue, and design, bid, build's in the dark blue. IPD is sitting out there by itself, and construction management. And what this is it's the four main systems with what we thought and what we believe are reasonable iterations underneath those of what we call our subsystems. So if you looked at the first one under design, bid, build, on the left side of the screen, you'd see this equation starts with O in this case, O plus an EPCM plus a C. The next one starts with PMC. Well, that means one of them, the owner, is sophisticated enough that they can manage the rest of the contract. The PMC means the owner may be a smaller owner or for different reasons went out and hired a project management contractor. And I'm not going to read all these to you, but below that, under design, bid, build, you could see an equation that talks about O plus E plus PC. In other words, the procurement is done by the construction contractor. There's another one, O plus EP plus C, where the procurement is done by the engineering contractor. So you get the point. It'll make more sense if you end up using the tool. But the one that I wanted to talk a little bit about was this integrated project delivery, IPD, because that's at least different for me. And if you took all these various elements and you tried to say, instead of writing this equation where they're separate pieces, how would you integrate all those into sort of one project delivery system with a common leadership team where they were all, at least in theory, trying to work for the same good and in the same direction? And that's what this IPD is. It's a way to try and integrate all the parties into one multi-party contract and put the profit at risk, but it's a way to manage your risk. And I don't know, how many of you are familiar with IPD? Can I see a show of hands? Oh, quite a few. Okay, wow, more than me, so great. But I learned a lot about it over the course of the project. So anyway, that's what IPD is. And as you know, probably CII is doing a lot of work around that currently. And then that was to help you with this common framework. And then really the next thing is this decision support tool. How do you work through a process to be able to figure out which is the most appropriate for your situation? And in order to do that, I'm going to give it back to Dr. Hannah. So thank you.
Thank you, Clark. So as Clark said, we have three basic delivery that take the shape of the pyramid. The concept file, which is here are the different delivery system, and then when to use it, how to use it, cost to precaution, things to avoid. We have that detailed in 4 or 5 pages for every delivery system. The second deliverable was the decision support tool, and we have 2 of them. The first one is decision tool criteria. So we have what we call a driving statement. So we created a table that I will show you in a second that have 36 driving statements. And then this driving statement have 10 factors group. So we talk about size, cost, schedule, risk allocation, design, experience, staffing, and so on. So the first decision tool that we have is several pages of a table, and I just choose to show you only one cell from that table. So the driving statement is the one you see in the middle. If you can read it, this is a small project for our company, and the default value for this sample size is $100 million. Or this is a big project, or this is a medium project. So if you look at the last row of the table, if we have a big project, over $500 million is the default value, okay? So what kind of rating? So we have a rating from 1 to 3. 1 is the least appropriate for this delivery system. 3 is the highest or the most appropriate for this delivery system. So if I choose to go, this is a larger project, it's over $500 million, then design bid build will take a value of 1, and CM or design build or EPC or IPD will take a full value of 3. So you go through 36 questions like that, and then you add the score at the end. So you see which one is more appropriate to your organization. It really drives you to think about the risk allocation, to think about your design, you think about staffing, and so on. So it's nothing more than 4 or 5 pages of this driving statement, 36 of them, and all what you need is to put 1 or 2 or 3 and then add numerically what is the score for each one, so it will give you some valuation for each delivery system. And it may be done collaboratively with contractors, it may be done individually, it may be done with 2 or 3 of your own team. And that is one of the decision support tools that we provided in this research. The second is a series of decision trees. Probably 5 or 6 of them you can see in the document. Let me explain this. This is for design build or EPC. Then you ask yourself first, who is responsible for the project management? Can the owner, the first question, can the owner manage the project in-house? If the answer is yes, you go to the left side, and then we look for the construction responsibility. Can the EPC firm execute all aspects of the project? If the answer is yes, then O plus EPC. So the owner will take responsibility of project management consulting, and EPC firm will take the engineering, the procurement, and construction. If the answer is no, then I go O plus EPCM plus a separate entity for construction. If I go to the right side of the flow chart, again, can the owner manage the project in-house? This answer is no. Then I go to the next question. Is early procurement of the key items is critical for this project? If the answer is yes, then I go PCM plus EPCM plus separate entity for construction. If the procurement is not critical, then I go PCM plus EPC. So as you can see, this is how we help your organization get into the right project delivery system. Then we continue the pyramid story, the third deliverable, with performance metrics. So we have 20 performance metrics. Many of them we used existing CII definitions. So performance metrics basically is quantitative measure of project success. So we have at the top project performance score, PPS. That's one number to evaluate your score for the entire project. That number integrates cost, schedule, quality, communication, and the change management. And underneath each one of them, here are the metrics that we use: construction cost growth, and there's a formula for this. Construction schedule growth, and there's a formula for this. Percent rework, RFI processing time, RFI per $1 million, and the change order per $1 million. So all these metrics will be integrated into one single number. And that is really the difference here that we are making. We have quantitative measure of project performance. We have numerical values of project performance. So I don't want to show you the formula at the top, but let me show it anyway. We use a technique called logistic regression. Okay, it's a well-known, established statistical method to give you the score of each project delivery. So I know you may be only interested in the factors that impact overall project performance. These are construction cost growth, schedule growth, percent of rework, RFI processing time, RFI per $1 million, and number of change order per $1 million. These were the most significant out of 20 different metrics that we used in our research. So we apply this to all the delivery system, and we get what you see here. What you see here is IPD outperform CM and design build and design bid build. The number that you see here is the median. This is part of what we call box plot in statistics. So we provide 25% of the data above the top line, but instead of going this way, we just show you the mean value. So the score of IPD project, which is substantial, is 0.67. The score of CM is 0.52. The score of the design build or EPC, 0.44. The score of design bid build is 0.14. You know, I don't want, and I'm not here to sell IPD or anything like that, but if you don't like the conclusion, we give you the methodology. We have the formula. Measure your own performance. But what you see out of the 96 projects that we collected data from is IPD outperform all the other in overall project score. In the document, when you get the document, it's available. Okay, if you want to look at the cost impact only, you will see a comparison like this in terms of cost. If you want to look at the schedule, you will see similar box plots for schedule. If you look at quality. So we have divided all performance in every aspect of the performance metrics that we choose. This is for statistically significant. Somebody may look at this and say, where is safety here? Surprise, surprise. What we found out, that safety become part of the culture. And there is no difference whether you do design bid build or IPD when you come to safety. It's not a significant factor. It's part of your culture. It's part of our culture. So that is the quantitative comparison for our research. Now I'll give it to Nicole to give you an idea about what is available for you to download. Nicole?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hanna. Okay, so we'll wrap up our presentation with lessons learned and steps you can take to evaluate the different project delivery systems within your organization. So first and foremost, use the tools that we developed to train and educate stakeholders within your organization on the different delivery systems that are in use today. As Clark had mentioned, the concept file contains a wealth of information about the 4 major delivery systems as well as the 12 subsystems that are currently being used in our industry. In order to create a culture of success, you need to be collecting quantitative project data on your projects on a regular basis, and you should be assessing the data that you're collecting frequently. CII is rolling out a new data warehouse initiative, which we'll be hearing about later this afternoon, and that initiative will help define what project data is most useful to collect on your projects and also create a platform for you to upload that data for future use as well as for project benchmarking. So when selecting project delivery systems, we tend to focus on project factors solely when making a decision regarding what delivery system we should use. One of our lessons learned was that the owner-specific factors can have a significant impact on project outcomes, and those factors often are very fluid depending on the state of your organization. So we recommend that you look at those owner-specific factors on a regular basis and make a determination if the delivery system you're selecting or you're used to using is truly appropriate for the current state of your organization. And last, given the outstanding performance of IPD's PPS, as Dr. Hanna had discussed, we suggest that if the decision tool leads you to an outcome that suggests you should use IPD, we strongly encourage you to consider using IPD on your projects. Dr. Hanna mentioned in the beginning of our presentation that despite the large amount of capital spend within the DCC sector and the significant number of projects that we execute within our sector, we were unable to find any projects that had used IPD. So what resources are available to you now? As we discussed, our research team is complete. So all of our deliverables have been turned in, which means all of the data is now available on CII's website. You can download the owner's manual, the decision support tools, the concept file that Clark had discussed, all of the analysis supplement if you want to go look at the box plots and all of the raw data, that's available, as well as a copy of the survey that we use to gather the information. And a copy of this presentation will also be available on their website. So Isaac Asimov was a Boston University biochemistry professor and also an accomplished science fiction writer. And he said, "No sensible decision can be made any longer without taking into account not only the world as it is, but the world as it will be." So as we move forward into the next phase of the world following the pandemic, it's an opportune moment to examine, think strategically, and set your organization up for success. Selecting the appropriate project delivery system is one way that you can optimize project performance and results. And we would like to take a moment to thank the DCC team that participated in this event under the outstanding leadership of the University of Wisconsin at Madison, under Dr. Hanna's leadership, as well as the rest of the industry members that were part of the DCC 06 team. As Dr. Hanna had mentioned, we only had one meeting in person, which made it very difficult throughout the year to continue the engagement of the team, but we had an outstanding group of industry members that were made up of both owners and contractors. We just wanted to thank them as well.
Take some questions.
Thank you all. Great research, great presentation. Thank you for the diligence in a tough year to make that happen without being face-to-face. So we experienced the same thing on our research team, so I certainly understand it. Well done, guys. Again, you guys are great in terms of your being attentive and asking questions, and there's no possible way to get through all these. But let me just ask a couple of them in the few minutes that we have remaining. And I'm going to start with a really easy one, because I didn't catch it, and somebody else asked about it also. What does DCC stand for? What's the acronym?
I'm not to see, it's the...
Downstream and chemical.
Yeah. Okay. I just still didn't catch it, but...
Downstream and chemicals.
Downstream,
is
okay, got it, good, all right.
CII.
Good, all right, thank you. Let me ask, here's the first question then that's serious. Why do you think that the systems that are the most widely adopted appear to be the poorest performing, based on the evidence that was presented?
You want to take that? Okay. Well, a lot of it is government regulation. Can you imagine going to a government organization right now and say, I want to start an IPD? There's no way. I have a student, a master's student from the Navy, wonderful people, always wonderful people. And he started learning about IPD, and he said, how in the world we can apply that in the Navy? There's no way. So it's government regulation, the desire to be transparent, the lowest bidder is the easy one to do. And so there's a lot of other reasons, but I just finished a study actually for the state of Wisconsin. The design bid built is the lowest performing, and the study covered 20 years for the state of Wisconsin. So all the evidence is design bid built is not the best option.
All right. Secondly, at the organizational level, and this is, I think, a practical question, takeaway from this, at the organizational level, how can we position ourselves to better adopt more integrated project delivery strategies?
Well, I might take a shot at that, which is really, you need to be intentional about it. You need to think about it. You need to make sure you're challenging yourselves to look at those. So one, I think, is identify what these alternative strategies are, and make sure as you're working through what your specific strategy is that you actually reach back to those and you use an idea of why wouldn't that apply in this situation? Why wouldn't that work? And I think our tool kind of helps, or the University of Wisconsin's tool kind of helps set up that kind of a conversation.
Okay. Next question, I think, maybe ties into that a little bit. Many owners likely have a project delivery system they prefer, have experience with. Any advice for how they make the selection, make a change even?
I mean, again, I think it's one of the things you can do is you can look at these alternatives and try and collect data on the alternatives, whether the data comes from CII or I think this little tool gives you a format to figure out what are the key metrics and the key pieces of data you need to track to make your own decision of what's really the best. And I think even in some of the larger companies, you'll say, how do we actually know that EPC or the lump sum or reimbursable, how do we really know that those really yield the best results? Because there's so many variables on a project. But I think trying to collect some of the key performance data that's mentioned in here, and I think track it yourself is one way.
Anything to add? Okay. Well, there are a lot of questions in here that were a little more technical. I think that if we were to look at the documents that you all are providing, I think it'll answer many of them, at least from my perspective looking at these. But let me just ask this last one. What do you see as the underlying drivers for IPD being more successful? How do we get more adoption of it?
Well, if I refer back to the last two presentations, training, knowledge. I had a student went to Chicago for a conference. He came back to me and said, IPD is not even known for contract. The term is not known. So education, CII education, understanding the success, it has been around for almost 20 years. I haven't heard any story that it went to court at any point. So all of this are factors. I saw a couple of hospitals. We have people from CII visited a big hospital in California, and it was built using IPD. It was going fast. And while you open ENR and you find a horror story on a hospital that's experienced cost overrun over $1 billion, $1 billion cost overrun, government hospital. So you need to look at these new ideas, how to adapt it. And of course, there's a change in culture in the process.
I think it's important to say, too, we're not up here selling, I don't believe we're up here selling a system. What we're saying is the data that we looked at yielded these results, and there's a tool that you can collect and analyze this data yourself and come to your own conclusion.
Great, good. Well, thank you all again, and I encourage you to read this full report, get a lot more of the details, some of the technical questions that were asked in there. So thank you guys again, and let's give them another round of applause. So we are at the end of the morning session. We will now depart for lunch, and if I may just say, we're going to restart again at 1 o'clock, so if you would be just back in this room at maybe a minute or two just before 1 o'clock in order to get started again on time. Thank you.